It's time to talk LSU baseball with Mike Scarborough and Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball. This is Batter Up.
All right, Mike Scarborough here, Batter Up. Of course, our top guest every week, Kendall Rogers with D1 Baseball, and busy first week. Obviously, I'm imagining for Kendall, and but LSU sure did look like they took care of business and didn't play down to a lesser competition in any of their games. Of course, last night's game was canceled due to cold weather, but some impressive outings for a lot of newcomers and most notably the pitchers, Kendall.
No doubt. First of all, I'm going to tell Jay Johnson you did say that I was your top guest, so I'll let him know about that. I appreciate that, Mike. I think the biggest thing for me is opening weekend. You never really know what to expect. It doesn't matter if you're playing, the Fort Wayne Mastodons or you're playing the Clemson Tigers. You just want to play really clean baseball for the most part. And like you mentioned a minute ago, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, etc., like there's a tendency for teams that are really good to play down to these kind of teams. And LSU did the opposite of that. They dominated from pitch one. The guys that we were kind of looking forward to stuff-wise, they had elite stuff. Offensively, they were able to get it done over the weekend. They were very consistent. And so every box that you really want checked opening weekend was checked. And now, obviously, the next few weeks, they're going to play better competition. But, everything looked pretty good opening weekend for sure.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that too, Kendall, is the fact that you've got a lot of new faces and a lot of newcomers, and it's their first experience at Alex Box, and wanting to introduce themselves to the fans, and and so I wonder if that's a part of it. Is it maybe I'm reading more into it, but maybe is it more of a veteran club where you had a lot of returning starters that maybe you'd be more adverse to that? But either way, I think everything that Jay said in the off season and with us last week kind of is come to fruition. I just look, yes, the competition is what it is, but I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited. And not only that, knock on wood, they're very healthy as a team right now. You're not talking about 1, 2, or 3 guys that you wish you had that could be difference makers like you've had in previous seasons.
Yeah, I think that what's really interesting is, if you look at, you talk about some of the returning guys and the older pieces there, but one thing I thought was really intriguing was the fact that several of these newcomers played well over the weekend. We've talked so much over the last 6 months about, how good Derek Curiel is going to be. Well, again, this is a guy that's ultra mature. Like Jay's not going to let him get out of his element, but still, when everybody's been talking about how great you're going to be for 6 months, it'd be really easy, no matter who you're playing, to come out and press. He finished opening weekend, hitting 500. Chris Stanfield, he was a guy that, when LSU picked him up from Auburn, you kind of did a little bit of a double take because, like, really athletic guy, but, like, hadn't really gotten it going offensively during his time at AU. And, Jay was pumped about him in the fall. He played well. And then Danny Dickinson, obviously was a standout at Utah Valley. And again, he did it at a high elevation at Utah Valley, but like, how would he do opening weekend in Baton Rouge? It's a little different. It's a little bit different pressure level. So he, passed that test opening weekend, hitting over 450. So the thing I liked is, the veteran guys played well for the most part, but the thing I liked was a lot of the newcomers looked like they were kind of in their element, which is what you want to see early in the season.
Well, everything's at breakneck speed, despite last, night's game being canceled due to weather. We get Jay midday today.
Yeah.
Then, of course, they've got Omaha for a 3-game series this weekend. And you mentioned next week, Dallas Baptist before they head to Frisco. And I wonder how much of a gauge that's going to be for, what – you got Nebraska.
Nebraska will be a good test for them. I think we'll find out a little bit about this team in Nebraska. And I don't want to downplay like Kansas State and teams like that. But Nebraska is a team, I think it's a Saturday game, I want to say, that weekend in Frisco. Nebraska is that team that I think will give us an idea of what kind of club they have, just because they can pitch a little bit. They've actually got a little bit of velocity this year. And they've got a kid by the name of Gabe Swanson who's absolutely just destroying the baseball at the plate. And, they could very well win the Big Ten this year.
I was thinking about you earlier.
Thank you.
In your job for multiple decades now doing this. Yeah. And what has the streaming done for the ability to do your job? I'm like, you know, it used to be, I mean, tell me, like in 2005 or 2007, whenever it was, I mean, how many possible baseball games could you get? You were probably trying to get Fox Sports Southwest and trying to find whatever you could get to watch. And now everything is up there. And, you know, and then you can replay them. I mean, how much?
You know, to answer
that, made it tougher.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to answer your question, it's changed dramatically, and honestly, dramatically for the better. You know, never want to say like great things came from COVID, but I mean, the one thing that did come from the COVID era was this you know, reliability on streaming. And you know, back then, you know, the SEC had streaming and things like that, but you know, the ACC was still like one-offing games on like, you know, ClemsonTigers.com and stuff like that. And I think after that happened, and you know, they didn't want to like force fans to have to go to the ballpark that next season after 2020. It really kind of made all these different conferences blossom with streaming. And you know, now one thing I've loved is like the Big 12 now has, you know, Arizona State, Arizona, and schools like that. So no longer do I have to rely on the Pac-12 network to watch those teams. They're now, you know, every single one of their games is on ESPN Plus or, you know, ESPN streaming. So it's awesome, and it's made my job a lot better because, you know what, if there's a weekend where, you know, LSU's playing somebody, you know, playing Mississippi State at home, you know, A&M's playing Georgia, and Texas is, you know, Arkansas is playing Tennessee at home, you know, and I want to watch all three of them. I mean, I can literally just sit here and put on Apple TV in my office, and I can watch the top 4 games in the country all at once. It's made our ability to evaluate teams much easier because I love going to the ballpark, but if I'm being very frank, like I probably get more out of it if I'm here watching 7 games, because I can actually look at, you know, 40 different teams and be able to tell you everything that I know about them.
Absolutely. You know, fans will say, Mike, are you going to this road game? Like, are you kidding me? I can get so much more work done.
Yes.
In the office and not being stuck in an airport on the way home while you're missing stuff. Yeah. Or driving,
I do feel like
whatever.
Football's a little different just because football, I feel like you can get a lot of like colorful elements on site a little bit, whereas like baseball, not quite as much.
But yeah, I look, you're in East Texas, because I remember, you know, before the SEC network came about, you had Cox Sports, and Cox Sports carried a lot of LSU baseball games.
LSU and Arkansas.
I want to say Cox Sports was in East Texas, right? If you had Cox.
Yeah, it was Lufkin. Yeah, I grew up in Lufkin. Yeah, so
you might have been able to gotten your nice fill of LSU baseball.
I did LSU and Arkansas, man. That's all I could watch is LSU, Arkansas, and occasional. Was it back then? It was like Prime Sports or something, where like, you know, you'd have like a random Texas A&M game on or something. But yeah, it's come a long way. I still remember. You know, you'll laugh because you probably were in this position at some point doing a recruiting, you know, watching a recruiting showcase or something. But I still remember when I first started covering college baseball back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know, there were like 2 schools that had just awful streaming like nationally. But I still remember, I think Kansas was playing Texas in Lawrence, and they literally had like they called it a live webcam, but I mean, it was probably 40 seconds behind. And that's how I watched the series. It was literally like, you know how you watch like, you know, the closed circuit like video where they're like skipping, they're moving so slow. I mean, I watched like whole baseball games like that. So
yeah,
I'm ecstatic where we are today.
That terrible video that you're talking about is what made Mark Cuban a billionaire.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was obsolete not soon after he sold it. But yeah, yeah, but then the downside of it is because everything's up there for you to stream. Every fan base expects you to watch their team's game.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, there has to be a balance, and what's tough in the SEC, especially now with Texas and the SEC. You know, I've had a tendency the last couple of years, and it's helped that they've been good. But, you know, right now I live an hour away from A&M, and, you know, if LSU's in town, you know, like if I look at their schedule, LSU's in town, Mississippi State's in town, Tennessee's in town. Well, I end up going, you know, if they play on 3 straight weekends, I end up going there 3 straight weeks, because guess what? I can go watch their game at 2:00, be back here by 6, and I've got a quad box in my house an hour after their game's over. So,
Yeah,
a lot of
that's the
people
way
are
you
like,
should do it.
well, yeah.
That's the way you
Well,
should
some
do it.
people
And
are like, well, hey, you're going to A&M too much. But it's like, I mean, why wouldn't
no,
I? If they're hosting all these teams an hour away and I'm, home in an hour and I'm able to get a lot more information.
no, you're doing it right. And y'all have a great staff at D1 baseball, and y'all are spread out pretty good all throughout the
Yeah.
country.
Well, I know you like a lot of A&M coverage. So
Yeah, and Etheridge does a good job, and all your guys. Yeah, A&M. I
it's
get
your
it.
team right
Yeah, here we go. I got a few questions for you. What do you think the role of Gavin Guidry is going to be?
there. Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I mean, he's gonna have to be he's gonna have to be in there somewhere. I mean, the thing about him is I thought he actually pitched really well in some big situations last year. The other thing I really like about him, he may not have the stuff of a Casey Evans or something like that. The thing I really like about him is he really wants the ball, and he'll come right after you. And he just seems to be one of those guys that does not get rattled. There is a significant role for guys like that in the SEC that you can throw them out there. And I'm not going to say that some guys pitch scared. I don't think it's scared, but like there doesn't seem to be a lot of nervousness with Gavin Guidry. So I would think moving forward, there's got to be some sort of pretty important role for him.
Yeah. Were there any surprises? What were the biggest surprises in the opening weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
I
just
mean,
looking
there
here.
was a few of them, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to just look here and see if
Not
there's
just
anybody
I'm talking about nationally.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about LSU. Um, I think the biggest thing for me was, I think you look at like I was at Globe Life over the weekend. Ole Miss played well. Luke Hill, the Baton Rouge product. He was a guy that transferred in from Arizona State last year. He was good last year. He wasn't great. He looked awesome last weekend. He was a leader for them. Hit for a lot of power. He is kind of their fire starter. And to make it Louisiana related, another guy I really liked was Hayden Federico out of Monroe. Just a really talented freshman. I mean, he plays with his hair on fire. He's confident. He's cocky. He's a guy that Ole Miss severely lacked last year. And of course, that's the son of Tim Federico, the head coach at ULM. So I thought Ole Miss looked way better than last year, last weekend. Obviously, the record they had at Globe Life would indicate that. I think the team for me that I mean, if they can figure out their pitching, they remind me so much of 2022 A&M when Jim Schlossnagle was there and took them to Omaha in his first year. Texas doesn't have the arms that a lot of these other teams do. Jared Spencer's a really nice arm on the front end. They don't have the depth of arms. It's really a staff full of relievers. But I tell you what, man, Texas can really hit. I mean, Max Ballou was awesome. Will Gasparino was awesome. Adrian Rodriguez, a talented third baseman for Texas. He's going to be a superstar. So keep an eye on those guys. They're going to hit, man. And the question will be, can they pitch enough against, LSU and A&M and schools like that to make a really big move in that conference this year?
No, I was looking over your top 25 this week. Has Kentucky really lost that much to where they're not? Where do you see them at? I mean, obviously we know all the teams that are in the top 10. And I'm just kind of looking at the other parts of the SEC, and I'm like, man, Kentucky gets discounted, and yet they're always strong on the cusp every year.
That's a great point. I mean, I think one outlet ranked Kentucky. I don't know how you would rank them going into the season, but I mean, they have proven their worth over the last couple of seasons. I mean, they were in a super regional. If they're not running into Paul Skeens, who knows what happens that weekend? Then last year they obviously get to Omaha and make some noise. I think the issue I have with them this year is if you look back at last year, they got Trey Poozer out of Charleston, who was Charleston's ace, ended up being a really good arm for them last year. What they're going to need this year, they're going to need somebody like that steps up and pitches like he did last year. Maybe Nick McKay, the North Dakota State transfer, is going to be that guy. But I just think I don't think they have near as much juice offensively as they did last year. Luke Lawrence from Illinois State was a nice pickup, and obviously Devin Burks is back for like his 40th year at Kentucky. But I just don't think they have as much juice offensively. And the problem with the SEC is, okay, if Ole Miss is going to be better, and Mississippi State's going to be better, like somebody's got to lose games. And Kentucky, unfortunately, is that team that I think will have to lose games.
Yeah, yeah. I was just wondering when you look at how top heavy and where all the SEC teams in the top 25, who are the ones that aren't ranked that are possibly the next team up, and just the way that they're coached. I was wondering if they could be that team.
Yeah, I mean, maybe so. I mean, Nick Mingione is, he's done an awesome job there, and so it's one of those things. It's like playing with fire a little bit to not give them a lot of love in the preseason, because you can bet. I know Nick well. You can bet that our preseason SEC rankings are on the bulletin board in their locker room.
Oh yes, so, I think he liked you doing that.
Oh, he loved it. It's kind of like when the coaches had LSU fourth. Like Jay loved that stuff.
Well, what was the word we got? Was that Jay's ballot might have had LSU ninth?
Well, you know what? While you're talking, I'll go see where Jay had LSU in our preseason survey.
LSU was fourth by the SEC coaches. I was told that might have been submitted ninth, but
interesting. All right, I'll have to. Well, here we go. Let's see where LSU is. Let's see where LSU is in LSU's survey coming this season here. Jay's an ultimate sandbagger.
I love it.
Not as bad as Tim Corbin though. Tim Corbin, you want to talk about a sandbagger? Okay, so LSU survey, which I don't know if Jay submitted this. It could have been any of the coaches. Maybe it's Josh Jordan.
SID.
At LSU 7th.
There you go.
Yeah, so he probably put that up there. They probably put that on the bulletin board and said that's what Kendall.
And what was the time frame of that submission versus voting in the coaches poll for the SEC?
So this was submitted in like late October, early November.
Okay. Yeah, so he might have dropped in 2 spots leading into
I mean, they must have done a bad job in the weight room or something that week, and so he dropped him 2 spots.
Well, I can tell you right now, man, Josh Pearson, these guys come out and look, he had missed a leg day. He was out there in shorts. When Jay raves about his new strength and conditioning coach, it's legit. You can see it in these guys when they come out for player interviews, and we're going to get a couple more of the guys today. I don't know who we're going to get, but look, these batter up segments each week brought to you by our good buddy Kenny Haines. Let's hear from Kenny.
Kenny Haines is a proud 1989 graduate of LSU Law School with a passion for justice. Kenny stands out as the only lawyer in the state, board certified in both appellate practice and family law. Drawing from 34 years of trial experience, Kenny has navigated the most complex aspects of real people's lives. If you need help in Northwest Louisiana with a family issue, legal issue, or a highly skilled trial attorney, call Kenny 318-222-2100.
There you go. And of course, Kenny is the unofficial official lawyer of TigerBait.com, and he reserves the right to think most clearly for a paying client. He's a great friend of mine and TigerBait, and one of the pinnacle of attorneys up in North Louisiana. All right. Got a couple more for you. This is, have you seen Jay with this much pitching depth?
I have not. I think that's the one thing that kind of stood out about this team coming into the season, that if everything clicked, this is going to be an incredibly deep pitching staff, and not only for LSU standards, but just in general. Like, you could argue that this could be one of the top, depth staffs in the country. I mean, you think about Cade Anderson, Anthony Hines, and Chase Shores threw really well over the weekend, and we didn't even talk about that earlier, but Ianson, Anderson, Shores all threw well. I mean, you look at the other pieces, Zach Cowan, threw 3 pretty solid innings for LSU. Jacob Myers didn't throw a lot of over the past few days, but I mean, at least got in there. Connor Ware's a big time arm. I mean, you got, Will Schmidt, the talented freshman, Kason Evans. Rizzi was up to 99 over the weekend. So, yeah, I mean, that is a lot of options for LSU, and that could be trouble for opposing teams.
Who is your second best college baseball team in the state of Louisiana?
I mean, I would have said the Cajuns, but I mean, they lost 2 out of 3 to San Jose State last week. I'll still go with the Cajuns. I will say Louisiana Tech is really interesting to me. Lane Burroughs does an awesome job there, and he told me in the fall this would be the most challenging team he's had, just because they lost so much from last year. But remember the name Trey Lawson, their first baseman. He's going to be a really good player for them. They're actually at USM this weekend, so we'll get a pretty good idea there. I do think long term, though, that just for you, I'll say UL Lafayette. I get in the habit of saying Louisiana. I will say the Cajuns. I still believe in them. I think with Chase Morgan as their Friday guy, it's assuming Andrew Herman can come back. One thing that's kind of hurt them is their fifth-year senior lefty in the rotation is on the shelf right now. Assuming he can come back, I mean, I think the Cajuns are going to have a really good team this year. But yeah, there's no doubt when they lost 2 out of 3 to San Jose at home, I'm like, ooh, I didn't see that coming. And they had to come back on Tuesday to beat Texas Southern at home. So I don't know what's going on over there.
Your most impactful LSU transfer player at the end of the year, who's it going to be?
For the Tigers?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with Ianson. I just think when you think about the top transfer portal pitcher and a team that's trying to win a national championship, I just think, your elite transfer guys have to be elite. And I think, Ianson has the best chance to do that just based on his sheer stuff.
All right, Kendall, I'm gonna let you get out of here, but I want you to promote D1 baseball and what y'all got going. People need to get on y'all's YouTube channel. I see your waypoints. Y'all do so much stuff that y'all do around the horn. Y'all got 3 or 4 shows at least a week. And I think a lot of people need to tune into that, but promote D1 baseball, how people can get on there and why they need to subscribe.
Yeah, man, just we've got a lot of content right now. I think over the weekend we had like 7 or 8 stories daily from various sites around the country. Obviously, we're streaming LSU next weekend at Frisco. We actually have a code. I was talking to KP the other day, and I was like, hey, let's get a code for LSU fans. LSU 20 will get you 20% off of our streaming sub. What's good about our streaming sub now is I think the last time LSU was in one of the peak tournaments, it was like a one-off. Like you paid for the sub and you were done with it. Now, when you get a sub, I think the price is maybe $3 or $4 more. But as a result, you actually get a D1 baseball subscription to read all the content. So obviously we cover LSU a ton this year, and LSU 20 should come in handy next weekend.
Yeah. Do you have a release on that, or do you, tweet that out?
We will. Yeah, we will be
and at me, and I'll retweet it. And that way, all the LSU fans know to use that code, and so they can get on there.
Okay. Yeah, and I believe Jay's going to promote that too. So
yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Well, man, another great show. We'll do it again next week. Have a great.
You got it, brother. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Stay warm, bud. All right, man.
Yeah.
Bye.